Joining me on today's episode is Landon Persinger, who is the creative director of football at Memphis University. So, Landon, you are the youngest creative director for a football team ever in the NCAA. That is a tremendous feat, a crazy role. And I'm really excited to chat with you today about your journey to working with the football team at not even 20 years old.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you for having me on.
We connected through a mutual friend and Jay-Z, who's done a lot of work in Ottawa up here in Canada. And he's also gone down to Memphis and got a little taste of what things are like down in the US, especially in the South. What were some of your favorite memories from the times that you guys spent together, being able to shoot, create, do all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely my guy Jay-Z. We had a lot of fun down here. Just it really started out. He just was like, "Yeah, I'm coming down for 2 weeks." Kind of just like came in, did his thing, and then it was like, "Oh, he's like here for 2 months." So he kind of just lived it up. It was cool to see him as he was coming from like the CFL and just like listen how different that game was to our game, and then like seeing him shoot the American college level, like he really seemed to enjoy it, and it was really just cool to vibe with him. Obviously, we went out, had good time, couple arcades. I mean, we just had really a good time. It was just kind of cool to see him get down here and enjoy his time around our team and our program.
What were some of the things that you learned in particular about Canadian football and the worlds of the CFL that you probably weren't exposed to before he came down and you guys met?
Yes. So the main thing definitely is how you can do like the running start with the wide receivers. Like they don't like in American football, you have to be standing right on the line when they snap the ball, you can go. But like the running start in the CFL and Canadian football, that was just like crazy to me, as I feel like it's a disadvantage to defenders as if they, have like a running start at the line of scrimmage. That was like really the main thing that was like, oh, I never realized that.
Yeah, it is something that throws a lot of Americans for a loop when you see guys who are able to run at the defensive backs, or when you can miss a field goal to win the game. That's another one of my favorites. The
Mm-hmm.
wider field is also very obvious, and maybe not one that's as crazy, but maybe it's the end zones. I know Ocho Cinco went on a podcast and talked about all the prime real estate you get with a 20-yard, 65-yard wide end zone compared to the NFL. It almost seems like you have to try to catch the ball in a phone booth if you're throwing a fade in the NFL or American football in general.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
Memphis football. So the program there has, I mean, it's not the, let's say, when people think of NCAA football, they think of like Alabama, LSU, and whatnot. But I think Canadians sometimes don't always get the full picture of how big and how important football is in almost every place in the US, especially in a place like Memphis that is a Division I school. So describe to me what the atmosphere is like at Memphis University and what it's like working with the football team in the creative department.
Yeah, Memphis football is huge here, not only for us in the city, but all around. I mean, really, it's the Grizzlies is the NBA team, and we're the NFL team. There's no other football around here year round. Right behind me, you see this big stadium. We get to check that out on Saturdays. And really, the one cool thing about like Memphis overall is like the city's real connected. Everybody's Grizzly fans, everybody's Memphis Tiger fans, everybody is going for the same team. And that's really like the main thing as far as like city support, all that. Like it's a great little community, of course, great city. And then just as far as like Memphis football is like people don't realize, but like we have a lot of resources here that even other schools don't have. I mean, you're talking, we have 4 practice fields. We have an indoor, an outdoor turf, and then 2 grass fields. Like you don't get that at a lot of places. We've had a good bit of home successes. We're one of 4 teams with 50 home wins since 2014. So I mean, and on top of that, you look at our NFL guys. I mean, we've got 17 active guys right now. We're top 10 in points in the Super Bowl. A bunch of talented guys that we produce in the league. So overall, just the atmosphere here is great. Coach Silverfield's a real raw dude. Really grateful for the opportunity that I have to work with him every day. And, he shows me the way. And, the best way that people can show to lead is lead by example. And that's what he's all about. He's a guy that no job is too small for nobody. If there's trash on the ground, he's going to pick it up, and that really just shows me mostly as like a young person, like somebody I can really like look up to. And this is how things are done. And really that just goes for Coach Silverfield, not only him, but all of our staff. Like everybody here is just a family atmosphere, and it's really great to be around every day.
Not even at 20 years old, working with a major program when it comes to NCAA football. What do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned in the last year of working with the Memphis Tigers?
Really, it's just really the bond for one another. Really, here it's a family, and I feel like it's different than a lot of places because everybody talks about family and getting close with one another, but what I really learned here is like care. Like care is a big word that really goes underrated. Like how to care for somebody, have somebody's back, and just be like being around our guys, going out to events or whatever, man. Like you really just get this family atmosphere. It's kind of like no other, and it's really like we're one team. We're all here to win. So it's really been a blessing.
What memory sticks out the most from the last football season?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't think you can go wrong with the bowl game. Obviously, anytime you have a chance to play in a championship game type of deal, it's always cool, when we're at the end there and you see the scoreboard and, you're raising a trophy. I mean, that's always a great memory. And this overall, like the whole bowl trip, instead, usually you're traveling the day before, playing the next day. You get a bowl trip. I mean, we had like 5 days down there. We got to go to see Dallas Maverick game and they played LeBron on Christmas, and you get to go out with all these events and you really just get to see the guys have fun. And really, that's one thing I really do enjoy overall. Like you see the guys having fun, and when they're having fun, you're having fun. It's really just awesome to see them enjoying it.
So I want to turn back the clock a little bit. You have only been working with Memphis for a short period of time, but your creative work has been outstanding. What was it that inspired you to get started with doing creative work in the realm of sports media?
Yeah, so really it started back my sophomore year of high school. Like I was on Instagram, and really they were called edits at the time, and I was just scrolling, you could see these sports edits, and it was like, oh, that's cool. So I really just started out on my phone making graphics, and then next thing you know, Akron football is looking for somebody. They really don't have anybody, so they like remotely get me out there. So I remotely worked with them while I was heading my senior year of high school, and then Miami, Ohio, basically poached me because they're top team in the conference. So headed there, and then before you knew it, as an Akron as a student, UConn got me full time, and then when Memphis called and Coach Silverfield presented me with this opportunity, I'd jump all over it.
Man, does it ever at times feel like you are almost like a player in your own regard? Like you're like a free agent, you move around, and even though they're not necessarily playing football, you're still doing something that makes it feel like you're a part of the team.
Yeah, I think that's really just college football in general. Obviously, our industry is a never changing industry. People move, all that, and yeah, you really do feel like a part of the team because you're around these guys and the staff every day. Everybody is all into this thing, 100% committed. So you really do feel part of everybody.
Yeah, especially down in a place like Memphis. Obviously, football I think is big anywhere in America, but I think it hits a little bit different when you approach the southeastern part of the U.S., especially getting close to the deep south, because the fact that football is almost like a religion there, which is it creates for a unique atmosphere, I think, for people, especially who are not from there.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree. I mean, you look at our stadium, we're filling that thing 30,000 strong each Saturday. And you look around our conference, those stadiums only hold 30,000. So like if we'd play in any other stadium, that's full sold out crowd every day. And just like the other southern schools around us, football, like you said, football is big. And so like really what we do here is obviously there's an emphasis on football, and our community likes to be very involved with our team and in our community. So it is a big deal down here in Memphis.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge that you've experienced in being a creative director at such a young age?
I think the hardest challenge really is really just like learning the curve, because when you're young and obviously don't have as much experience as these older creative directors, most likely it's just like learning how to do things from a creative aspect. Everybody can have like their personal standards in that, but it's just like how do you plan out certain stuff? How do you caption this? Is this a photo? Is this a video? Is this dimensions or that dimensions? So really it's and really that's just time how it is. Akron obviously gave me the opportunity when I went there as a student, like run the show. So my first year being there was actually a huge blessing, because we're at a level where I kind of was flexible to learn the curve, and then I go to UConn, I reunite with a guy I worked with in Miami, Ohio. Well, he just came from LSU, who was defending their national championship the season he was there. So when you get there and it's like I'm learning under this guy that just came from defending national champs, you just sit back and learn. And then you get here, and now I kind of got, I got a sense now of what it's like. But really, when you get started, that's obviously the hardest point, and it's just like how you do certain things from a creative side, and it's the little things like how I set up my creative team. Like I'm going to put my students in their strongest positions because I want our best content. If they're good at photo mainly, then they're going to be a photographer, right? So it's just like, when you come in, you don't even think about that stuff. And it's like, okay, how do I do this? So that's really just like the hardest challenge.
When it comes to working as a creative and setting up a team when you direct, what have you found are the main differences in terms of how you approach your job compared to how you approached it when you were at Akron and you were doing everything, or when you were at UConn and you maybe weren't the top of the line or the person who was in charge of everything?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. Obviously, just from growing more and seeing how it is. I went into Akron. I was just really trying to find like people that could help us out. Didn't really know what I was looking for. Didn't really have. I mean, I had a plan, but it wasn't like thought out as experienced much plan. But really, there it was like, let's get these talented people and then just kind of throw them in their place. And then what you realize is I had like 4 months there, Akron, before I moved on. But and then like at UConn, what I really learned was like we had a bunch of students, and my boss Robert Trombley, who's now at Missouri actually, but he really like spent more time like hosting his students, like making them feel like family, really making them part of the program because they were key parts of the program. And not only that, like training is half of your job. Training your students is half your job. So really now here at Memphis, like one of my big goals is, you start to, it's like basically a student creative program. They come in as a freshman, you got 4 years to develop them. Just like our coaches, they bring in players, they got 4 years to develop them, get them to the league. Well, I got 4 years to make sure they have a job when they leave. So that's really like the goal. And just how I do that now is like you really want to train them up, and then it's like once they got a year under their belt, they're kind of used to football. They really can operate on themselves and what you need them to, and you can lean on and trust them. So I think overall, just really building them up and making them the best they can be.
It definitely seems like a very different dynamic in the sense that you're not in a pro sports league where people can just be there forever. There's a lot of turnover, things change, and that also maybe presents some exciting opportunities to have different eras of excellence compared to just trying to hold on to the same team of people forever.
Yeah, it's definitely cool that way, because once you get once you get somebody, you train them up and they do their job, and it's kind of their time to move on. So it's like who's next, and that's definitely exciting because not only that, you get different personalities, you get different backgrounds, and all that. So when you really get to like mix it in together, get to know one another, it's definitely really cool to see how it all comes together.
What are some of the places that you look as a creative director for inspiration when it comes to how you post on social media, how you curate content, and ideas for doing things that are different or outside the box?
Yeah, so definitely there's a combination of things. Obviously, people have like Skull Sparks, Behance, Instagram, Twitter, but like one of the main things I do personally, and then like my creative team will do this season is like Twitter. So like Twitter, there's this, you can have lists on Twitter, and you can basically, we have a filter of all the college football FBS schools, all 131 in there, and basically like bookmark all the good content. We see all the good captions, and then what they do is we save it and we rip it and we throw it in an inspiration folder. So like really watching other programs content is a big thing, and then away from that is like hitting up the people I know. I got in with touch somebody from Georgia football a couple months before, right before last season, talking about like what's their game day flow like, what's how do they do this, and he actually shared something with me that I thought was really cool. It's called I call it in season caption sheet. And what it is it's sorted by its captions sorted by what happens in the game. So you have like touchdown, then you have a list of captions, you have first down list of captions, interception list of captions. So like it's just small stuff like that. There's multiple ways, and really like connecting with other people is huge because just seeing how other departments are ran, and like the little things like that in season caption sheet, like it might just be a little thing, but it makes like a lot of difference. And you get your post out quicker on game day because of it. So it's just, there's a mix inspiration, but really it's all it all is from online, just looking around digging for what you can find.
I never thought about it that way before. I never have actually ever sat down to ponder what kind of systems you can create with, whether it's having pre-made captions or having just a big folder of all the different things you can pull from. Because even in one of the jobs I do, it's posting live during games for the CFL, which sometimes different things strike you and they inspire you, but it's maybe not as, I mean, it can, don't get me wrong, CFL games can be super crazy and hectic, especially the last 2 weeks have been ridiculous. But college football, I feel like every moment can be ridiculous and
Mm-hmm.
amplified like crazy, especially because of what's at stake. So having those systems is actually a really smart way to go about things. And I think that's probably what makes the whole machine operate so well.
Yeah, and on top of that, like how we even do it is like a big thing because obviously, you could have like a fart says videos. Well, there's thousands of videos out there, so we're gonna have like videos, and it's gonna have like hype video, it's gonna have like practice mix. That's gonna be more sorted. So, if I tell so and so go make a hype video, they can go in there, and then there's like the top 25 hype videos we've liked from the season, and they can watch those for inspiration. So we're very detailed on that, just for the fact to show, everybody's always looking for inspiration. That's just a quick way to get to it instead of scrolling and looking down when it's time. It's just right there in the folder. You can go look at it.
Do you ever draw inspiration from other sports teams or leagues or pros?
Yeah, definitely there's always something that pops up from other leagues that's like big, and you obviously don't miss those. Like obviously like the NFL schedule release is something that is super unique every year, and you always pull those because that's just like one big thing. But then the other stuff like NBA draft content from some of the NBA teams, and just there's a couple other things that you have, combine content, like there's always something from the pro level. But honestly, like overall it's more college based just because that's the level we're at. But we definitely dig into the pros a little bit too.
Who would you say are, in no particular order, the three college programs that are seen as the gold standard for social media?
Yeah, definitely. That's,
It could even just be like restricted to football specifically, because obviously there's other sports that
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
aren't as popular.
yeah, football specifically. I say definitely Tennessee's up there. They've always had this look has been unique, and especially with their graphics. Same with Ohio State. Ohio State's always been a program, and if you watch the way they kind of operate, like I'm mainly a graphic designer, so that's like my main feed. But like their graphics are kind of different than everybody. And then the third one, I don't think Oregon. Oregon's always got something up their sleeve because what they can do with their uniforms and their collars, like you can have graphics that are black, yellow, green, or white, and it's going to look good no matter what. So I think like those three overall is kind of like a big look for everybody.
Oregon, it almost doesn't even really seem fair with the fact that Nike was invented there and they have access to a billion uniform combos. And they used to have some of that actually in Canada. There was two programs, University of Saskatchewan and Guelph, who it was not more than 5-6 years ago, they had up to like 12 uniform combos, which for Canada is ridiculous. But Oregon is definitely a team I think that's always struck me as the most compelling visually, just because of like maybe they're not the best on the field, but what they can do visually is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Like one thing now that's really becoming more and more common in the graphics game is like these 3D elements. So they even like they'll even put these duck icons in there, and they kind of make them like 3D. And then they've had a couple like triangular looking 3D elements, and that's really like I think they're really like one of the programs that kind of like started that, and that's really where it kind of like caught my eyes. Like, hey, this is different. We have a 3D element. It's not like the main focus, but it's like playing a big role in the graphic.
What experiences led you to being so detail oriented with the work that you do with Memphis, and even just maybe in creative design? Is there anything that you can think back to maybe from years prior that allowed you to be honed in on focusing on the smallest nitty-gritty details?
Yeah, I don't think it's like any one particular thing, but I think it's another thing where it's over time. You know, when I first started, obviously it wasn't as detail oriented, and then when you get it in and you learn about this stuff, you have to be more laid out. You have to be more organized. You know, you have to be very detailed in everything you do, not just in with the graphics, but even in life. But like for example, like at Akron, you know, I have like social media calendar, all that, but you look what we're doing now in Memphis. We have social media calendar where we have an NL sheet that has every player's Instagram, Twitter. It has all their social medias, all coaches, all of our NFL guys, all their birthdays, and then like you have analytics folders. You have all this stuff going on that it's more like detail oriented. And then when you look in the creative game, you have to be detail oriented. You know, obviously, graphics now they take a little bit longer. You have to make sure everything's spelled right. You have to make sure every little pixel is perfect. And I think overall, just over time, you get more organized. You get more paid attention to the little things, and overall, just adds on.
And it definitely is what creates a great project. And I think maybe one of the things about graphic design that seems so tedious is how much time it can take to make one graphic. Like you just see something on Twitter or Instagram, you like it, you're like, oh, this looks really cool. But in reality, even in some of the small experiences I've had with doing graphic design stuff, you start to realize, wow, this actually takes way longer than people think it does.
Yeah. No, I definitely like first when I started out, you know, it take a couple. I mean, I even sit down and like early start a couple of days, but then you know, once you start getting a hang of it, it's like 4 hours type deal, and then like really like now for the big projects and the big stuff, it's like a 2 hour deal. That's something you're really looking in, honed on. But then once you like build your brand out, you're kind of you know same look, kind of same overlay, same background, kind of just changing the key elements, and that's more like a 45-minute deal. So that's kind of where I've been at now, and with our brand build out here in Memphis, is kind of where I've been at.
What were some of the projects or pieces of work you put together that you're the most proud of in the last year?
Ooh. Definitely been a lot. I'd say it's really cool to see your like designs in person. So like one thing I got to do here when I got here was design our equipment truck. So, good old 18, big wheeler, you get to design every side of it. So that was like one of the cool ones. And I think like the other stuff in our facility, team meeting room, defensive team meeting room, the couple walls outside, a couple other rooms. So I think overall, like that stuff's usually the coolest overall. And then one of our running backs from back in the day, D'Angelo Williams, he was actually in the College Football Hall of Fame. He got inducted in there. So like making that graphic and making that special for that moment was really one of the key points that I really enjoyed.
How long would it take to make a wrap for an 18-wheeler truck?
Yeah, well, when you start, it obviously takes a couple hours, but then it's not even like just the start. It's obviously with it being such a big project, it has to go through multiple people. And then there's multiple revisions. So, like on a project like that, you're looking at weeks or however long. And then that's just like, speaking of that, like that's just talking about like facility design. I'll throw the first draft out and we're not going to see it show up in the facility till like 5 months later. So it's really just, it's a process at the end of the day, because obviously you don't want anything to go wrong or look bad. So I don't know, you start out with something, you got a couple revisions here and there, and then it's got to go to the print company, and then it's got to actually get put on. So it obviously takes a couple months for sure, but overall it's just time.
Yeah, that's something that would just take a lot of details, time. That it sounds like a very involved project. Even designing team meeting rooms, like to me, when I see, and especially in a lot of Jay-Z stories, posting about being in Alabama or Syracuse or these other facilities, and I'm just always amazed as to how huge the design, the details, everything with so many college football program facilities. Memphis, whoever it is, there's just a crazy amount of time that seems to go into designing the facility and everything around the building. And to me, it almost seems like you're walking into a museum. That's what it feels like when you see the
Yeah.
grand structures. And obviously people care about wins and losses and who goes to the NFL and whatnot, but there's something I find that's very unique about just the culture of college football in America. It's unlike anything else I've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure. Now the facilities is like, I always enjoy like just going to other facilities and like seeing what they have and the different displays and all that stuff. Actually, when I was back high school and even younger before that, we would go like anytime we were at a place where there was college there, like we would try to get in the facility, stuff like that. I mean, with Florida, UNC, Duke, like Virginia Tech, like we'd just go all over, and you kind of walk in and it's like, wow, look at this and look at that. So it's really cool to see like the different facilities, what they have in them. Is it a Nike wall, is it a trophy display like this, or just a bunch of different stuff. So no, it's definitely cool.
What is the craziest experience you've ever had walking into a facility outside of Memphis?
The craziest one I'd say is definitely, there's been a couple that's had it, but it's like when they have interactive stuff. So like when they have a board up and you step on something, it starts playing something, and then you can tap on it, you can choose your uniform you want to wear, you can scroll through their history, you can play their Hall of Famers highlight video. That's usually like the thing that I'm like, wow, like that's kind of different, because instead of it just being one still thing, they got something in here you can really be interactive with. So overall, I think it's just like anything interactive that is more than what it is just sitting there. That's always cool to me.
Which schools have had interactive displays and setups in their facilities?
Yeah, Florida, when I was there, they had that. I think Jacksonville State actually went down there, and they even had one in there. We have one here at Memphis. I'm trying to think. There's one specifically I was thinking of. Oh, West Virginia. If you go in their basketball facility, they have this whole slew of an interactive thing, and that was actually like the first one I ever saw. But those are some schools I can remember off my head, but I definitely like it.
What do you think is the coolest college football tradition of a specific team, whether it's
Yeah,
singing the chorus of Country Roads in West Virginia or Florida singing Won't Back Down?
yeah. Nah, there's definitely a lot, but I can't go any other way than back in my home state, West Virginia, country roads. There's really nothing like it. I mean, you're singing right there with 60,000 of your closest friends. Like everybody knows the song, you're not at some little cookout. Not everybody knows the song. Like that's the state's pride. That's what everybody's on. So by far that beats everything.
Man, I would love to have that kind of experience. And for even just watching the videos, the environment seems
Mm-hmm.
so infectious.
Yeah. Nah, it's Morgantown's definitely a great place, Never can get away from home. It's a unique experience up there.
What do you think is your favorite thing about the experience of traditions that exist within Memphis, within the program there?
Yeah, I think the most unique thing is like it's the traditions are like welcomed in by the city, like the city embraces the traditions. So like Memphis, we're a little bit more city. There's some city slang. There's a little bit more chip on the shoulder. We got kind of a grit and grind edge to us type deal. So like one of the big things they like here, like one of the songs is "Whoop That Trick," and we play that at the end of fourth quarter while we're heading the fourth quarter, and everybody's up on their feet, waving towels, waving shirts, whatever they got. They do it at the Grizzlies games too, but everybody just kind of gets up, and it's like these other schools have these smaller, other things going on, and we're out here with this whole city, type deal, and it's cool to see like the fans really get involved in that.
Now, being from West Virginia, this is just a random thought that popped in my head. Is the NFL popular there? Do people cheer for NFL teams in West Virginia or not that much? It's more just college football.
Honestly, they do, which is funny because myself, like, I don't have a professional NFL team or NBA team, and that's also another thing that makes West Virginia unique. West Virginia is the pro teams there, but yeah, they definitely do. The Steelers are a big one, the Browns are a big one, the Eagles are a big one, and then you just got a bunch of randoms everywhere else, but definitely like the Steelers and the Browns are the two main ones.
What's your favorite? If you were to describe a reason or a thing that someone should do if they've never been to West Virginia, what would be that thing, that selling point that you would describe to somebody about where you're from?
You definitely gotta go to New River Gorge Bridge, or even you could even go to the W State Capitol. But like the New River Gorge Bridge, it's national park, and there they have like white water rafting, and it's like rough water rafting. You're in there with helmets and all that, and then on top of that you can go hiking, and then they even do a what they call Bridge Day every year. It's kind of like a big national event, and people jump off the bridge there. So like it's definitely that's definitely like West Virginia in a raft. It's you're climbing mountains or you're in the water, kayak and canoeing, and then just like the rich tradition of like West Virginia was always known for a coal mining state, so we've always been a blue collar state, and that's just kind of who they are.
Before we part on today's episode, I want to ask you a few more fun questions to wrap.
Sweet, let's do it.
Who would you say are three people, no particular order, that inspire you the most with your ambitions?
Yeah, no doubt it's definitely like my mom. I mean, overall it's just like family. Family's obviously a big thing in my life, just growing up with them. I'm the youngest of three older brothers, so it's like but no, they really paved the way for me and like showed me how things were done. So definitely my family. Overall, a lot of people back home have helped me. Obviously, being young in this industry, I had to start somewhere. And a lot of people back home, I'm really grateful for because they were willing to like open up and support me at such a young age. And then, yeah, that's really back home and family are like my main two things.
What is one college football stadium that you would love to see a game at that you haven't been to yet?
I think you can't go wrong with Alabama. I haven't been there. I've been to Auburn, but I mean, Alabama's kind of always been it's always been a powerhouse. Nick Saban's from West Virginia, so I always thought Alabama, I need a night game in Alabama, see what it's like.
Who do you think is the greatest college football player of all time based on what they did in college?
Based on what?
Based on what they did in college for football.
Oh man, now you're getting them good questions now. I don't know. I think overall, one guy that I looked up to growing up, obviously being young, was Tim Tebow. What he did with that Florida team with Urban Meyer and those dudes, dude kind of played with a chip on his shoulder, kind of put the team on his back, and quarterback's always the leader. So when he was coming up, he's a big name and kind of like what he did down there at Florida.
And who'd you say is your favorite celebrity or person that is famous who's originally from West Virginia?
I think you can't go wrong with Jerry West, the logo, the NBA logo. An old time great there. Everybody loves some Jerry West, so definitely gotta go with him.
Well, man, I really appreciate you being on today's episode. That's a wrap for us here from Memphis, Tennessee. Landon, I'm grateful for the time you were able to spend chatting with me today.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you for having me.